everyone, I'm Robbie and welcome to 678. We are so glad that out of all the things you could have been doing tonight, you decided to show up here. We truly believe that God has something special in store for you. And if you haven't heard, CIY registrations are officially open. So if you're in 8th grade and if you're looking for something to do, this is definitely something for you. Would love for you guys to sign up and see you this summer at CIY. Without any further ado, here's Pete with tonight's message.
What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us online tonight. We're so hyped that you are with us, joining us, and I hope you've had a great week so far. Again, just super happy that you're here joining us, and I'm excited for tonight, ending what has been an incredible series called Double Tap. I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, before we jump into it, I want you to click that link at the top, copy, share it, so you can watch this with somebody, and hopefully it'll bless them as much as I think it'll bless you. And let's dive right in, okay? Now, I have a word that is on my mind, okay? It's popular, it's trendy, it's been kind of going around for quite some time, and I need you right now, in the comments below or with the friends that you're watching with, I need you to guess just any word in the entire world. I'll give you $1,000 once I ever get $1,000. I will give you $1,000 if you guess that word correctly, which I'll tell you later. But go ahead and type down in the comments, what appropriate word do you think I'm thinking of right now? So go ahead, write it down. It's not cupcake, it's not rainbow, it's not quesadilla, even though this is kind of making me hungry. It's not pizza, it's not football, it's not... What is it? What word do you think that I'm thinking about right now? Give you a couple hints. This word was added to Urban Dictionary in 2016. Okay. This word, it's a verb. Okay, so you do this thing. You do this towards someone or towards an event that you just want to kind of cut off. And my last clue is it's an easy out. It's an easy out. So go ahead, finish up writing in the comments or discussing with your friends, what word do you think I'm thinking of? And in about 5 seconds, I'll show you on the screen what word I'm thinking of. Last chance. Comment, what word do you think I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the word ghosting. Ghosting someone, all right? Now, for those of you who don't know what ghosting is, you should consider yourself very, very lucky. But what you should not consider is ghosting anyone anytime soon. Now, obviously what ghosting is subtly drawing back, distancing yourself, or just cutting yourself off from something, all right? Maybe it's a person who is like shown interest in wanting to be in a relationship or a friendship, and you're just, I'm not feeling it, so I'm just cutting off all communication. Maybe it's an event that you said you were going to or you're interested in going to, and you're just not doing that anymore. You're ghosting that thing or that event. Now, I need to ask you, what would you all prefer to be when it comes to ghosting? Would you prefer ghosting over the phone if it was with someone, like over text, DM, phone call, basically not in person, or in person? Which would you prefer? On one hand, it's very easy to send a text and just say, told them no mas, no more, thank you, I'm done. On one hand, it's really easy, but at the same time, it's not super respectful, and at the same time, people will feel, unsure about things. They won't have closure. There'll be a lot of questions if you just cut it off real quickly. Or do you prefer in person, just like being straight up honest if you're cutting something off with someone when it comes to a friendship or a relationship? In person is a lot tougher, but at the same time, it's much more respectable. You typically leave on good terms, and both people have closure, so it's kind of, better that way. But what do you prefer? Because I remember when I was your age, in fact, when I was in high school, I was actually limited, okay? I was limited in how we could cut off things or how we could kind of distance ourselves from people when it came to social media. I did not have social media in high school. Can you just imagine what a different world that must have been like? There was this thing with our phones, depending on the plan that you had, each student had different minutes for the month. That's right. We had a certain amount of allotted minutes that we could talk on the phone. We sometimes even had a certain number of texts that we could receive and send in a month's time, and it just reset each month. Isn't that just, it's insane to think about. I know, because it's so abnormal thing about today. But the interesting thing is that because we couldn't just ghost someone over the phone, everything had to be done in person. All right. So if someone was going to break up with somebody, it was always face to face, in person. And sometimes people had to end things with other people in front of crowds, which added more drama, and things got a little spicy sometimes. Okay. In fact, this reminds me of a story which I can't believe I've never told you about. A story of Robert and Anna. I thought about it the other week, and I can't believe I've never told you the story of Robert and Anna. Now, the only thing I can remember about Robert and Anna, or Anna and Robert, is that they dated for like 2 to 3 years, and in 10th grade, all right, 10th grade, there was a sort of a fallout, as you could say. In 10th grade, I remember it was after PE one day, and we were in the locker room, and Robert was talking it was just Valentine's Day, so it's sort of current in terms of the month of the year, as we are now. It was just after Valentine's Day, and Robert was bragging to all the guys in the locker room just about, how good him and Anna were, how much he was like running the relationship. He wore the pants, and he had Anna wrapped around his finger. He kept saying that phrase. He loved saying, I got Anna wrapped around my finger, man, she does anything I say. And it was like, we weren't cheering him on. We were just like, dude, do you know what you sound like? But what he didn't know and what we didn't know is that there's actually a shared air vent over both the boys and the girls' locker room. Meaning that in one specific corner, just happened to be the corner Robert was standing, if you were standing there, you could hear what each other locker room was saying. And so when all the guys walked out of the boys' locker room, it was like a scene of Mean Girls. We walked out, and there was Anna like this, with a half moon of girls all around her, just like, like just staring at Robert. He was like, yo, they're waiting for me. All right, let's go. Robert was on cloud 9, feeling good. And he walked up to Anna. He's like, what's up, babe? How are you doing? And all she said was, wrapped around your finger, it seems. And Rob's like, what are you talking about? Like, you sound crazy. What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, you know how when you flip a coin, you put it on your thumb and you flip it and it goes up? All I remember is she went, just to let you know, when it comes to being wrapped around your finger, this is how much my relationship is worth to you. And she had a penny on her finger, and she flipped it at Robert, and it doinked him right in the forehead, and everyone was just jaw dropped, and it was the most, I don't have the words. I felt so bad for Robert. Actually, I didn't feel that bad because he was sort of a tool in the first place. But what we did do is after this happened, anytime we walked in the hallway by the vending machine or the cafeteria for the next couple of weeks, and Robert was with us, we would all say, hey, Robert, do you happen to have like some spare change or a couple pennies for a snack? I need to get one real quick. And he did not like that very much. But some would say that he got what he deserved. But in other circumstances, ghosting was a little bit different back then. And this idea of ghosting, or the concept of ghosting, it's gone way beyond relationships. It's gone beyond friendships that you just don't click with anymore, obligations you initially committed to but don't really want to anymore. Sometimes we ghost God with our faith. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we all do this. We all ghost someone or something at some point, and whether it's a definitive decision to intentionally walk away or to slow drift, we have all found ourselves to a point to where over time we find ourselves just drifting a little further away and ultimately ghosting God. And tonight I want to talk about what that means and how he typically responds to us when we do something like that. Now, like I said, we're ending this series called Double Tap, where we're looking at the year of 2021 and how to put our heart first so that we can win at relationships, friendships, and life in general. First week, we talked about setting our heart on God, which was so good. All these videos are on our previous YouTube, the previous videos. You can check them out, catch up, and we'd love for you to check those out. So first week was setting your heart on God. Second week was guarding your heart. Last week, which was so good, we talked about loving God, others, and yourselves. And this week I know I mentioned ghosting and the act of leaving something or someone. And all I want to do for tonight is I want to tell you about one of the most important relationships that Jesus ever had while he was walking this earth. Okay? Now, as I get into it, I want to acknowledge that every week I bring up something from the Bible, and I look at the Bible because I believe that God used imperfect people all throughout history to show us who he is and what he did to show us just how much he loves us. For you to better understand the Bible, real quick overview, I need you to know there are two main sections. There are the Old Testament and the New Testament. You can look at this picture right here. And the main thing I want you to know for tonight is that Jesus is in the middle. The Old Testament consists mainly of God's relationship with humankind or humanity. And then the Old Testament is right when God brings Jesus into the picture and introduces him into this section that you can see called the Gospels. Now, the Gospel, the word translated means good news, and that's what Jesus was. Jesus came to bring the good news because he was the good news that people were waiting for, okay? Now, the relationship that I want to focus on tonight is found in all of the Gospels because this one relationship with Jesus was super important. Jesus' ministry lasted about 3 to 4 years, and he spent his time with a bunch of people, but there were a select group of people that he really poured into. And one of those people he came to know really, really well. The first interaction of this relationship is when Jesus is rallying up a few people that he knows he can trust and he sees potential to follow him. So I want to read that to you. This is John 1, 41 through 42. Okay? It says this. It says, the first thing that Andrew did was to find Jesus introducing himself to people. First thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, we have found the Messiah, that is, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, you are Simon, son of John, and you will be called Cephas, which, when translated, is Peter. Okay? I want to talk to you about Jesus and Peter. I know there are about 14 different names in that one section of verses right there, but basically, if any other future verses refer to Simon, it's talking about Peter because that's what Jesus says. And from the start, I want you to notice, Jesus looks at Peter and he says what? He says, you are and you will be. You are Simon, you will be called Cephas, which means Peter. And I want to take a quick moment and I want to acknowledge that God sees you for who you are right now with all of your stuff. Everything you're carrying, everything that no one else knows about, God sees you as you are, and he loves you so, so much. So much so that he sees beyond that as well. He sees the future you. He sees the hope that he has for you, and he sees the purpose that you were made for. He's leading you to that purpose, which is one of the many things that I love about Jesus. Now, the next main interaction is when one day Jesus is walking along the beach and he sees all these fishermen working, earning their keep, and just getting food for their families. And when all of a sudden, Jesus just gets in one of those boats. He starts speaking to the crowd, but he gets into one of these boats. Whose boat do you think he gets in? Peter's, right? He gets into Peter's boat. Now, Peter was exhausted from a full day of working, fishing and gathering, but Jesus tells him to do something sort of strange. Check this out. Luke 5, 4 through 5. Jesus says to Simon, Peter, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Simon, Peter, answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. Now, again, Peter was ready to go home, throw out the nets, but Jesus said, nope, I want you to trust me. I want you to throw out the nets to the other side of the boat. And what did Peter do? He begrudgingly listened, and look what happened. This is so cool. Luke 5, 6 through 9. When they had done so, they had caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of the fish that they had taken. Now, what I love about this is that Peter is an everyday fisherman. This is what he does for work. He knows the ins and outs of the sea. He knows how to fish. And here comes this miracle-working man, Jesus, who just says, yo, I know what you know. Trust me. Try this. And Peter's just blown away. So much so that he knows that this is not your average Joe. He's not just your ordinary man. This is actually the Son of God. So Peter and Jesus continue to hang out, and Peter is growing more and more to trust Jesus and see that, again, he's not this average man, but the real Son of God. He understands this. He becomes, cut that part out. So Peter and Jesus continue to hang out, and Peter's growing more and more to trust Jesus and see that, again, he is not just this average man, but the actual Son of God. And as their relationship is building, it's not just that Peter begins to trust Jesus, but Jesus also begins to trust Peter with certain tasks and responsibilities. Their relationship is truly building. Now, what I love is that any movie that you love, you may not notice this, but it's often a character within the movie that you love, or a character of a show that you love. And the biggest, most important aspect of a movie that you love is called character development. And it's you seeing the story of this person's life change over the course of the movie, or over the course of the show. And that's what's happening to Peter in the Gospels. We are seeing him grow as he experiences this relationship with Jesus. Because it was Peter who witnessed Jesus healing his mother firsthand when she was sick. It was Peter who Jesus called to walk out on the water, which Peter did. Peter walked in the middle of a miracle on water. It was Peter, when Jesus washed the disciples' feet, who knew that he wasn't worthy to have his feet washed by Jesus and insisted to wash Jesus, but Jesus said, "No, trust me, Peter. I love you enough to do this." And so Peter took that. It was also Peter, get this, it was Peter who took out a sword to defend Jesus and sliced a dude's ear off when Jesus was being arrested. Peter would do anything for Jesus. Lastly, it was Peter who, when Jesus said that everyone would scatter and flee after he died, it was Peter who said Matthew 26:31. Check this out. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you all will fall away on account of me." To which Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." After every single thing that Peter had seen, after everything that Peter had experienced, and after the relationship that had been developed over the years between Jesus and Peter, Jesus looks at Peter and responds with these words. Matthew 26:33-35. Peter replied once again, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "this very night, before the rooster crows, you, Peter, will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." I gotta ask, have you ever promised something with the utmost intention only to fail miserably? Have you ever had one of those Hail Mary prayers where it's like, "God, I swear, if you get me out of this, I will never, ever sneak out of the house again." Or "God, if you somehow, by the miracle of however you work, if you get me to pass this test, if you get it to where my parents never find out about this, I will never steal a street sign or a stop sign again. I will never go out. I will never disobey. I'll become a monk, God." Have you ever had those Hail Mary prayers where you're offering anything up and you mean it, but even if your prayer gets answered, what do you do the next day? What do you do the next week? We just kind of go back to things as if nothing happened, right? As Jesus was taken away, being led to the cross, all of his disciples, including Peter, did something he'll never forget. Matthew 26, verses 69-74 accounts the very thing that Jesus talked about. Verse 69, "Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and the servant girl came to him. 'You also were with Jesus of Galilee,' she said. But Peter denied it before them all. 'I don't know what you're talking about,' he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, 'This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth.' Peter denied it again, with an oath, 'I don't know the man.' After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, 'Surely you're one of them. Your accent gives you away.' And then Peter began to call down curses, and he swore to them, 'I don't know the man.' And immediately a rooster crowed." Jesus was completely ghosted by Peter, denied, rejected, and left alone by one of the few people that Jesus spent the last 3 years of his life pouring into. How would you feel in this moment if you were Jesus? If you were just ghosted by Peter, what emotions would you be feeling? Hurt, betrayed, angry, wasted time, maybe? How would you feel if you were Peter? Failing someone like Jesus after having been so close. after coming into your life, loving you, calling you to be something more than what you've been, encouraging you, loving you, forgiving you, and showing you that you were made for so much more. The Bible actually says that Peter, verse 75, Peter then remembered the words that Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you'll disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. He wept bitterly. The truth is that at one point or another, you or I experienced the very thing that Peter experienced. Whether it's you're growing here at HSM, or maybe you even came way back in middle school at Impact or 678. You go to an event like PCTC or CIY, and you feel something like maybe God's trying to reach out to you and extend his love and catch you, but then over time, you just go back to normal as if it never did happen, as if it was a dream. We just slowly retract ourselves, slowly distancing ourselves, slowly ghosting God. If we're being honest with ourselves, we've all ghosted God at some point. We've chosen everything else right in front of us. And when that inevitably fails, we think one of 2 things. Either God has what I need, or he's not interested in us anymore. But God is not wanting to be your last option. God is not wanting you to hurt yourself along the way as you navigate the craziness of this world, only to find that at the end of the day, he doesn't just have what you need. He is what you need. He is the very thing that you've been searching for, and he is ready to respond to you right now as you're watching this at home with somebody, wherever you are. He is ready to respond to you right now the same way he even responded to Peter, even after Peter ghosted him. After Jesus was crucified, word got around 3 days later that he rose from the dead. And when Peter heard this, he and his buddy John sprinted into the tomb only to find his linens there that Jesus had left. Peter, I want you to picture this, with his head hung low, reliving the shame of his denial, he made a decision that you and I often make. Peter told his friends that he was going to go back to fishing, back to his previous life, back to doing what he was doing before Jesus ever came in his life, as if he never did. And I think that sums us up as humans, unfortunately, really well. When we're in a moment with faith where we're good and we're growing, we want more, but the moment we fail, we think God loses interest. When we fail, we want to leave or hang our head in shame, go back to what we knew and forget it ever happened. This is what Peter did, and this is what we do. Jesus knows that, and I need you to know that no failure of yours, no mistake on your end can ever keep Jesus from moving towards you. Jesus is on the move, oftentimes towards you. The Bible says that as Peter and his friends went out fishing for the night, they actually spent the night on the boat and they caught nothing. Surprise. The next morning, though, they wake up to see a stranger on the shore calling out to them. This wakes Peter up. He's all blurry-eyed, wondering what the heck is going on. What is this moron stranger on the beach calling me out for? Peter wakes up, asks this man what he wants, and look what the stranger says. Stranger called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the other side of the boat and you will find some." Sound familiar? And when they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, "It is the Lord," he wrapped his outer garment around him and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. And when they landed, they saw a fire burning coals with fish on it and some bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you've caught." So Peter climbed back into the boat, dragged the net ashore, and it was full of large fish, 153 they counted. But even with so many, the net was not torn. In verse 12, my favorite verse of the whole story, Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." I need you to hear this. When Peter ghosted Jesus, when Peter did the very thing that you and I do almost daily, he wasn't ridiculed. He wasn't rebuked. He wasn't forgotten, and he wasn't hated by Jesus in any way. He was invited to breakfast. That's a relationship. That is what Jesus is offering to you. And if you've ever found yourself just pushing God to the side, not really caring about him, or whether you failed in some way, join the club. We mess up all the time. But know deep within your heart that Jesus will always return to you as he found you, only to take you into your purpose because he loves you that much. If you've ever ghosted God, I want to encourage you with the truth that God still loves you and he will never leave you. I want to end with this verse, and I just want to encourage you. 2 Timothy 2:13 says this: if we are faithless, basically if we make up, if we mess up, if we make mistakes, if we fail time and time again, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot disown himself. I want you to hear that and trust, even as you continue to live your life, even as you make mistakes and mess up. Know that God is there. Know that he is with you. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. He will remain faithful even when we fail. I love you guys. Have a great week. See you next week.